So nothing for it but to do it. So Hilchos Pesach. This are the laws of Passover. So we learn Tanya Sharlin. It's important to go over, to ask V'darshan, and then to expound Hilchos Pesach, the laws of Pesach. Kaidam Pesach, before Pesach Shloshim Yom, 30 days. Hilchach, therefore, Shloshim Yom Kaidam Pesach, 30 days before Pesach. Chalav Chayva Biur Kasher Avar. So it's important then, 30 days before Passover, to then go ahead and look at the laws of Pesach and to understand them. Okay, and then as we're going to explain, this is reading again from the Torah. This is Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher, and this is the main Ashkenazi authority. And if we have time, we'll go through other Ashkenazi authorities and we'll discuss certain things, but this is where we're going from. Okay, so continue on. Matzasi Kosov Meirosh Chodesh. So we found that it's written from Rosh Chodesh Nisan ad Achar Nisr Chag, and I found written regarding Rosh Chodesh Nisan Nisr Chag, Ein Neifel Ma Pneim Loi B'Yom V'Loi B'Layla. So when he says Yom V'Layla, he means not by Shacharis and not by Mincha. We clearly don't fall Tachnun on by at night. We don't do it by Marav. We only do it by Shacharis, the morning prayer. And we don't do it so the entire month. We have this prayer that's after the repetition of the 18 benedictions. This is the standing prayer called the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei. It's really 19 blessings. It's the Amidah. It's done standing, done silently. And then the cantor, the Chazan, repeats it. After that, they are going to go ahead and we have something called Tachnun or Nefil Zapayim, where we lean on our hand and we ask for forgiveness for things that we've done. And this is done throughout the year, but there are certain days of the year that we don't do it. And part of the days you don't do it are from the first day of the first month, which is Chodesh Nisan, which is the coming up month, and all the way until the day after Passover, not the day after Passover we do it. The day after Passover is called Isru Chag, called an extra holiday, even though we're allowed to do work. And then the following day, then we'll do it. And this year, since Passover ends on Friday, we're not going to do it Friday, and we never do it Saturday either. So the first time we'll do it again is Sunday. Now, people who are aware with the fact that the most authorities out there say the entire month of Nisan we don't do Nefil Zapayim, we don't lean on our hands the entire month of Nisan. So that's a major question. Because number one is like this: what gave anyone the authority not to say Tachnun on those days? And we're going to see he's going to talk about fasts also, which adds even a more complexity to that. Because then we say that fasts are not just until the day after of Passover, but it's also fast the entire month. But how can you do it? The rabbis, Chazal, the Talmud instituted the laws of falling on face and doing this prayer. How could we then just say, based on a calculation, that Rabbi Yisrael Meir, who was in the 18th century, late 18th century, or 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, Rabbi Yisrael Meir of Radin, he said that in his famous work, the Mishnah Berurah, he said that, well, it's the entire month because since you have most of the month, you're not doing the Nefil Zapayim, so therefore we're not going to do Tachnun, the Nefil Zapayim, the rest of the month. But how could he just do that? What type of calculation is that? If it was instituted by the Talmudic rabbis to have it, you can't just delete it and say we're not going to do it any day that we please. Certain days are built in that you can't. For instance, if it's a holiday, if it's a day where there's a groom there, where we say halal, all those days you're built in, then you don't do it. And obviously the mincha before those days, the afternoon services before those days. But how could you just say that just because the first 12 days of the month we don't do it. We don't do it the eve of Passover. We don't do it Passover. We don't do it the day after Passover. So since most of the month is not done, so therefore we're just going to do away with it. Torah definitely does not bring that down. There are authorities like there are authorities like Rashi states that there's a reason for it, and then Shulchan Aruch brings it down clearly. But it's a tzarchi how that could even be done. What else happens in the month of Nisan? So Mutzasi Kosov. So this is Rabbi Yaakov ben Usher writing. Mutzasi Kosov. I found me Rosh Chodesh Nisan ad Achar Hasrachag. Ein nefil pnei lo bilayim lo biyam b'layla. Excuse me. Vein Oimers is Koska. Tzedek, and we don't say Tzedek but Mincha Shabbos. That's a prayer after the Mincha on Shabbos, the afternoon prayer of Shabbos. There's this three verses that are said, and those verses are not said anytime there's no Tachnun said, no Nefil Sapayim. The Ein Msanin, the Ein Maspidin. We don't, like I said, we don't fast and we don't make a hesped. So these are the days from Rosh Chodesh until Yisr Chag. To also then elongate those days, Tachnun, Tzkotzcha, not making a hesped, especially this is now we're dealing with the honor of the dead. And we don't make a fast for those who fast for their parents, the anniversary of their death, their yahrzeit, to start saying that we extended the rest of the month, Tzarchi, and who gave you that authority to do it? I don't understand that authority. Anyway, Tzarchi means it looks like needs to go into further. V'hachi isa b'perkei kama d'meseches seifrim, and it was stated like in the first parak of Meseches Sofrim, which is one of the smaller tractates of the Talmud, Pavli. B'fnei ma ein Masana b'Nisan. So what exactly don't you say? What exact fast don't you do in the entire Chodesh of Nisan, which is the first month of the Jewish calendar year? There's a lot of first months. It's the first month of the month's year, although we've pushed back the yearly date back to Tishrei, but Nisan really is the first month of the holiday year. Passover is the first holiday of the year, and I find that Pesach is actually the highest day of the year. Some people say it's Yom Kippur, but I really feel like Passover is the most sacred and most important day of the Jewish calendar. So what does it say in that tractate of Sofrim, Sofrim? Because on the first day of Nisan is when Moses, which we're going to read in this coming portion, this coming up portion in Pekudei, the 40th chapter, 40th parak of Exodus of Shemos, the last parak of Shemos talks about how Moshe Rabbeinu he assembled the Mishkan for the first time, the first day of Nisan. Because he established it. B'shneim asur nisim hikrivu karbanim b'shnayim asur yayim. And for 12 days, the 12 tribal leaders offered offerings. B'chol echad b'yam yom tov. Or there was yom tov aim assigned by ad she Yaver Nisan, and therefore one does not fast throughout Nisan. So this is the source. So the source we said for the Tzarchian, it's actually brought in a Gemara in Sofrim. But it's interesting because what he's trying to prove is that it's not done until after Isser Chag. So when he brings this Gemara in Sofrim, he's not trying to prove the entire month that you don't fast. He's trying to prove that you don't fast only through Isser Chag. So it's interesting. So now it's Tzarchian. So what's going on? Those who bring this Gemara and Sofrim, they say it's the entire month. But the Torah is bringing this exact Gemara to prove it's only until the day after Passover. So this is something that has to be ironed out, but obviously we see both sides of the coin over here going on in the halacha. And the firstborns, they fast on the first day, the eve of Passover. So even though there's no fast done necessarily throughout the month, or at least until after Passover, there are some fasts. For instance, on the firstborn, fast is done on the eve of Passover, and of course it's a custom not to fast, but instead go to what's called a Sudas mitzvah, a meal that's for a mitzvah, like a siyum, when someone finishes a tractate of Gemara or finishes a big portion of Torah. So he celebrates, and you go to that celebration, and therefore you could eat if you enjoy that celebration. It's important. So it's the fast was instituted as a way to remind ourselves of what happened on the eve of Passover. But then it's also important that since it's the eve of Yom Tif, eve of a holiday, not to actually fast and to go to either a bris or go to some sort of or like I said, a siyum when finishing a portion of the Torah. So to go to that celebration in order to eat. V'talmidim misanin boy shnayim v'chamishin v'sheni, and talmidim meaning talmidei chamim, people who have the Yiras Shamayim in them, who have the fear of heaven in them. So those people, what they do is they fast Monday, Thursday, Monday. So it seems clear here, according to the Torah, that the Monday, Thursday, Monday, what's called Bahab, those fasts actually start not in Iyar, the next month, but actually fast starts the week after Pesach. So this year, when Pesach ends on Thursday, it would be the Monday after Pesach, which is still in Nisan. That would be the first Monday, then Thursday, then Monday. That's when the fast goes. Those who don't fast and don't say Tachnun and don't the entire Nisan, so they push it off until after. Of course, there's a reading. The other ones read the Torah saying follows. No, really only Nefilas Apayim goes on until Isru Chag. But the other things we're talking about are only throughout the month of Pesach. But that doesn't make sense at all, because why would he say that? He puts it all in the same paragraph. He makes no differentiation. So again, like I said, it requires for the site, but definitely there's a right here the differential between the Torah and Ashkenazi minhagim regarding whether or not we say Tachnun and we fast, and whether we do these things throughout the entire month of Nisan, except for obviously the fast of the firstborn on the eve of Passover. Anyway, so there we go. So they fast. These b'ftei Chil Hashem shleishes yamim, because of Chil Hashem 3 days. So what is it? Chil Hashem of 3 days, the desecration of God's name. So because people could party during the holiday and they could lose themselves, they may have made desecration of God's name, doing things that would be too merrily, so therefore they fast to try to get themselves back into a mindset where the holiday's over and they're going to move forward and obviously not do any desecration of God's name. And it appears to me that these 3 days refer to after Pesach. See, again, he's doubling down. It does not mean in Iyar. It means these 3 days, Monday, Thursday, Monday, are the ones exactly after Pesach, which is still within the month of Nisan. And it's the custom of Ashkenaz to fast 3 days after Pesach. Also in not to wait by Sukkot till Cheshvan, to the next month, but actually do it in Tishrei, the week after Sukkot, Monday, Thursday, Monday. Because there's days of fasting and feasting and rejoicing. And maybe a person came to sin, maybe he feasted a bit too much and came to sin. So you see how important it is that even on the holidays to try to show that we're trying to act it in a pleasant manner, that these fasts were established afterwards. So I think that would answer the question of the comments, because we see how important it is for us to focus ourselves to make sure even on the holidays not to get too out of hand, certainly the rest of the year. V'samchu oisai akra d'iyuv, and it's associated practice with Iyuv. This is brought down in the Sefer Iyuv. Vayhi ki hekpidu yimei Mishnah, because when he was feasting and there was completed the cycle, ve'la oilais misaper kulam, and he'd bring the oilais corresponding to all of them. Ki amar Iyuv ulechato baru, because he brought a oilais just in case he might have sinned. And oilais are done for sins that you may have done, you're not sure you did, or you didn't want to do, and things that you're not sure whether you sinned or not. You bring an olos of burnt offerings, and burnt offerings are also those that give expiation and give atonement. So therefore, you see the practice in Iyuv, so therefore that's where the 3 fasts came from, to go after the Chag of Pesach. Simin, this is now Simin Taf Lamed. This is Simin 430, Taf Lamed, in Orach Chaim of Torah. Shabbos Lufnei Pesach Kairi Noisai Shabbos Gadol. The Shabbos before Passover is called the Great Shabbos, and why is it? Vatam Lafi Shanasa Boy Nes Gadol, because a great miracle occurred there. How? Shapitach Mitzrayim Mekichai Ba'aser. So for the Karban Pesach Mitzrayim was taken on the 10th of the month. K'diksiv Ba'aser L'chaydesh Haya V'kichu Lahem Sel L'beis Avois Sel L'bayis. And on the 10th of the month, each person should take a lamb for his father's household, a lamb for each household. Pasach Yatsu Yisrael Mitzrayim Haya B'yayim Hey. And the Pesach, when the Yisrael left Mitzrayim, that was on a Thursday. According to, we know this from the book Seder Olam, which I would take everything with a grain of salt from Seder Olam. He does bring down certain things, and he does have his sources, but not everything is exact. But yes, but based on Seder Olam, and based on, it's really based on the Gemara. The Gemara talks about that it was really, they don't have to go to Seder Olam, you go really straight to the Gemara. The Gemara talks about that it was Thursday, and therefore the revelation of giving the Torah 49 days later was on Saturday, and how that worked out to 49 days, which was the 50th day. Anyway, so you don't go to Seder Olam, you go to the Gemara. Seder Olam you can leave to the side, you go straight to the Gemara. That's where you should get it from. Anyway, we could talk about Seder Olam a different time, why I find certain things in Seder Olam are not exact. But anyway, let's go further. So it was on Thursday, and therefore it was a Thursday, and that taken the 4 days, therefore it follows that it was Shabbos. When did they, Nimsa Shayud B'chaydesh Haya Shabbos. We find that the 10th, when they took the actual lamb, was actually on Shabbos. V'lachu lahem kol echad shel Pascha, and each one took a lamb for the Pesach offering. V'kasher Isai B'karcha Mitasa, and he tied it to the legs of his bed. And Mitzrayim and the Egyptians were asking them, why have you done this? What is going on over there? The answer to slaughter it, L'Shem Pesach, mitzvahs, Hashem Aleinu, that Hashem gave us a command to offer the Pesach offering, and their teeth were blunted over the rage, over the fact that they were slaughtering their God. And they were not able to say anything. The al shame Isai Hanes Kaidrin Isai Shabbos Gadol, and therefore the Nes is called Shabbos Gadol. Now this is brought, I think this is brought down in the Gemara, this reason. Now really I did a lot of research, and I cannot find that the Egyptians actually had lambs as their deity. However, there is an Egyptian god, which I'm not going to mention the name, but there is an Egyptian god that does have the head of a ram. And since a sheep, and it could really be a sheep's head, because sheep and ram have very similar horns. They have those curved horns. And since a sheep it resembles a ram, so it is possible that their deity with either a lamb head, or a sheep head, or a ram head, was their deity. So that's what it's referring to. And when they took this lamb and tied it to the bed, therefore they got upset. However, what makes more sense is the fact that actually the Egyptians actually could not tolerate meat eating, because they actually were vegetarian. We find in the end of Genesis and the end of Bereshis, I think it's Perek Chav Ches in chapter 48, it says that it was an abomination for the Egyptians to see the sons of Israel come, literally Joseph's brothers come and to be shepherds, and therefore they had to put in Goshen. The abomination was that they, for some reason, had an abomination to animals running around and all that other stuff. They clearly had their animals for other reasons, but they didn't eat animals. The fact that the Jews were going to now offer up animals, and they're going to offer up animals to their God, not they were offering up the gods of the Egyptians. They were offering up an animal to their own God. That is what really got into the goat of the Egyptians. The fact that after 9 plagues, everything was basically, now forget about leaving Egypt to go, what Moses kept saying, let's leave Egypt and let's go leave to the wilderness for 3 days and let's offer to our God there. Now they're actually offering it to their God in Egypt before they even left. That was what really got their goat, pun intended. And that is what is Shabbos Gadol. I'll do a small little mention that I do a small little mention regarding the Mos Chitim. It's interesting. The Shulchan Aruch brings Mos Chitin. I think the Ramah brings it, and others bring that custom. The Or Zarua brings it, and he actually predated Tor. He actually was contemporary with the Tor's father, the Rush. Rab Asher, he's Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher, and his father was the Rush, Rab Asher, who started codifying law in Germany. And the Or Zarua also codified law, although it wasn't as famous, but he did have put out his opinions in his writings, and he brought that based on a Talmud of Yushalmi, not in Bavli, Talmud Yushalmi in Basra. You should go ahead and give Mos Chitin. You should give it to the poor. Interesting. Mishnah Torah says you should give food to the poor for every Yom Tov, but he doesn't specifically bring this Mos Chitin, wheat for Pesach, to the poor. And since the Bavli doesn't bring it, it seems like the Rosh Tor didn't bring it either. It looks and it looks like also Rambam didn't bring it, because Rambam really also went mostly after the Bavli also. The Babylonian Talmud is opposed to the Jerusalem Talmud. So it's interesting that this sort of little nuance halacha, it's like one line in the Yushalmi, gets sort of lost. The Arzurah picked up on it, and later authorities like Ramah picked up on it also, but at least the earlier authorities did not bring any obligation whatsoever to give Mos Chitin. Although it is an obligation on the town, it's giving you charity when you live in a town for 12 months to give before every holiday money to the poor, and Mos Chitin is special. Right for Pesach, give wheat for matzos to give to the poor. It's very important. Anyway, I'm going to look to see if Maril brings it down. I hadn't have a chance to look at it yet, but so far it's not written in the Torah. Now we are up to Tuf Lamed Aleph. This is 431 Simon in Archaim Torah. Now, according to the Torah law, just having bittul, saying nullifying chametz in your heart, that's enough. You don't have to actually get rid of it. Now it's interesting because I don't. There's a question on this. It says specifically in the pasuk, it says that you shouldn't see it anywhere in your house. So how does making a bottle alone? It could be he's learning that according to Torah law, even if you see it, but if you say that it's worthless, so you're not seeing chametz now. Now you see something that's worthless. So the only thing you shouldn't see in your house is actually substantive chametz, substantive unleavened products. And if you make them worthless, so then it's really worthless, and according to the Torah, they'll be fine to still have in your house. Which, by the way, is how the rabbis go and say you're allowed to sell it. You put it away, you have to cover it. They don't want you to see it. You have to cover it, you have to put it in a cabinet, put it in the garage, put it somewhere else where it's not going to be seen. You cover it over the whole entire Passover, but you could sell it out of your possession. And since, even though it's in your house, but it's not your possession, it's not yours, and it's not considered in your house, in your possession, because it's not in your possessions, and the Torah says possessions. So therefore, according to that, that's how we're allowed to sell chametz on Passover. Okay, so, but according to Torah, he says, really, according to the minimum you have to do before Passover is just nullify it in your heart. You make it like dust. The chashvina, you consider it ki'ilu ha'ya'afar ba'alma. You consider it like dust of the earth, completely worthless. Va'az eina over love, and therefore you're not going to be prohibited from seeing or having chametz unleavened in your possessions in your house over Passover. Clearly you can't eat it. Even if it's considered like nothing, you can't eat it because any small amount of chametz is not good, but definitely this will get rid of the seeing and having it. Ella, Chachamim, Hitzrichu Lahaitzim in a bias, but the Chachamim and Chazal in the Gemara, they were very, very, Sanhedrin, Anshkas Kedolah, they were very, very strict, and they said, no, you gotta really get rid of your house. Even though the minimum is to just say that it's completely nullified, you have to get rid of it from your house. You should actually do that. Ulafisha Adam Ragil by Kol Hashana, because a person's accustomed to seeing it all year round. V'chashu Shema Yavai Lachlai Im Yisa Labayis, and they were concerned that maybe you're going to come to eat it. It's in your house, even if you make it like it's completely nullified. You might come to eat it, and that's going to be a violation of Torah law, even if you eat it, even if you have nullified it. V'tzrichu oid, and further, they required lidbaik acharav b'oichrein b'sadkan, that you should search in every single hole and every single crack. Ubechal hamakayma yishaderech l'shtamei sham chametz, in every place where chametz might be found in your house, in the pockets of your suits, in the pockets of your coats. Look in your winter coat in the pockets, because you might have put candies there, you might have put chametz there, and then left it there. You got to put, the jacket in your jackets, in your clothes. You might have put it, let's say, when you in your study somewhere, when you go there to eat, and then you just put it down somewhere. You got to look all around wherever chametz might be. That's what you have to look. Umatzu lahem samach min ha-pesach. And they found scriptural support from the actual verses in the Torah. They have to go ahead and do it from the light of a candle. Because it says in Sfanya that Achapas Yushalayim Banerais, that I will search Yushalayim with lamps. So when you search for chametz, you do it with lamps, and therefore we do it on the evening before Passover. So not the evening when Passover comes in, clearly, but the evening before the 14th of these at night comes in, you take a candle, and these days with a flashlight, you use a light, and you go ahead and search. Now clearly the searching has to begin before, because these days you're not going to clean your entire house and find all the chametz in your house without cleaning in one night. Back then, if you live in some little hovels, it's a little easier. These days, obviously, it has to be done beforehand. This is the final check. This is not the first check. This is the final check. And therefore, on the night of the 14th, one searches by candlelight. It's interesting that he uses the word leil because the Gemara uses the word ar, and the Gemara's huge dispute for like 3 pages, trying to figure out if ar means the first light on the 14th of the morning, or it means when it's the first darkness on the 14th at night. Clearly, obviously, it comes out that it's at night we do it with the candlelight, even though candlelight actually makes sense also the first light in the morning. You do it by daybreak in the morning of the 14th, you searching also makes a lot of sense, because everything is done on that day. The commandment really is to get rid of it by the midday of that day. So therefore, it makes sense when you wake up, the first thing you do on the 14th is wake up and then go search and then get rid of it. But obviously the rabbis put it for the night before, so we don't get into a rush. That's what we do, and that's where we start our search. The kevan tzarech lidvaik or haner tzarech lidvaik palayla. Since one searched by a candlelight, he must search done at night. She'az ayrai mavik. So therefore, it shines clearly. The light shines clearly. V'gam hi shah yudias b'chol adam notzei az bais. Also a time where everyone is going to be in the house. He's coming in. He's not going to go to work. He's not rushing anywhere. He's not going to daven. At first light on Yudalid, that's time to say Kriya Shema. It's time to go to davening. First, but when it comes dark on the night before, that we know everyone's home and basically nothing else to do. And therefore, a person should be careful not to start any work, not to start any learning until he does searching. And if it has a fixed time then that he learns, right after at that time when it comes night, he shouldn't do it until he actually searches. Because of but if a person does start learning, he doesn't need to stop. But according to the Torah, Rabbi Yaakov Nashri says the kevan shatam mishum shala yitzraish belimud yishak beliba. So it appears to be that since the reason is that he not become absorbed in learning and forget to do a search, ein chiluk. There's no distinction. If he did start, he has to stop, do the search, and then he can go back to his learning. Now we're up to Simin Taf Lamed Beis, and this is 432. And he says further, let's keep going. V'kaidim, Shaskel Lidvaik Yavarech okay, so before he starts a search, so the question is, does he light the candle first? So really you light the candle first, and then you start to search. But right before you start to search, then Lidvaik Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, you say, blessed are you the Lord, the Almighty, the God of the whole entire world, that has sanctified us in the commandments, and the commandment is to search for chametz. Sheyivoku zo tchilas ba'or, and this pedika is the beginning of the biur. So that's why it's al mitzvahs, on the commandment, not li boik, not to search. There's 2 types of brachas. There's the li, the to. So like lid boik would be to search. That would have to have been done before you even started. Like for instance, lisate b'tzitzis, to wrap tzitzis, before you even wrap tzitzis, that's when you make the blessing and then you wrap yourself a tzitzis. You do it before it even touches your body, basically. You hold it up away from your body, you make that blessing, and then you wrap yourself with a talis. Al mitzvahs is during the mitzvah. Since you started, you lit the candle, you're doing the search, and really the biur is the end of the commandment. It's not the search. The commandment is not to search the house. Notice how it's not al bedikas chametz, it's al biur chametz. So it's not li biur chametz, because we're not burning the chametz now. It's on the burning of in other words, all this is all connected, so therefore we make al. Okay, a little deviation over here. Of course, we'll go into a quick deviation. Those who claim the rabbis have no right to make commandments, how could you say, blessed are you, eternal God, who gave us the commandment to blah, blah, blah. Biur chametz is actually something that the rabbis instituted, so there's no actual commandment in the Torah to get rid of, but there is a commandment in the Torah to get rid of the chametz. So biur itself may not be the commandment of the Torah. The Torah did give a commandment to get rid of chametz before, by midday, so therefore biur is something that is really biblically commanded. Even if the biur itself, the burning itself is not biblically commanded, getting rid of chametz and doing it through fire is the way the rabbis instituted, so that is following the Torah, that is the deraisa. Okay. Umiyad, and right away, achar badika, he mevatla. After he does the badika, he says that it's batal. He will say anything I did not find, it should be nullified. Baal Ha'iter Kosav, and the Baal Ha'iter says, Iko man varech shechianu. A person should say the shechianu blessing. Tahaya bisman lizman kasi, because this comes from time to time. The Ikka man the Amar de Leibarach, and there are those who say you did not say the bracha of Shechianu. Shechianu is a blessing you make when you're doing something new, like eating a fruit for the first time in a season, or doing a mitzvah, a commandment for the first time, putting on a new suit for the first time, etc. And a lot of blessings have the Shechianu. However, you don't make it over here. Why? Because the Ikka man the Amar Leibarach, the one who says you don't make a blessing, the Hal Loikava Leizmana, because it doesn't have a fixed time. That's why when a child becomes 13 and you say that I'm getting rid of the obligations of this minor, now he's obligated on himself, we don't make a shechianu on that blessing. Samaki shechianu on other ones. Anyway, it's a whole thing about when shechianu can be made, but obviously the Rabbi Torah is paskening, he's saying we do not make a shechianu on biur chametz. Daha pirush biyad. The one who sets out on sea or travels in a caravan intending to return. So, therefore, since a person could really do the bedika, let's say he's not going to be home. A person has a house, let's say, in a different city. And he's going to that house for Passover. So the house he is in this city, he's not leaving on the eve of Passover, he's leaving a week before. That's when he'll do the search, before he leaves his house. So since he's doing the search before he leaves his house, and it's not this time, therefore it's not a set time, and therefore that's why he won't make this blessing according to Torah. Interesting. Taha bepirish biyam. Okay, we said this already. Okay. Umistavra rishosu, and therefore it seems like it's optional. Therefore, Uman Davram Varach, whoever wishes could say it. So you want to say a Shechianu could. So why is it not a bracha levatala? Usually we say a suffix bracha, you don't make the bracha. Heckle, we're lenient. We don't make a blessing because we don't want to use God's name in vain if it's a uncertainty whether or not you have to make the blessing. So the Torah is not paskening, it's uncertain. The Torah is saying that it's unnecessary, meaning you could make Shechianu. It's true. You are doing something for the first time. However, there are reasons not to, because it's not an established time. It's going to bring some other reasons, like it itself doesn't bring you joy, and also it's connected to the Shechianu blessing you make over the wine at the Seder. So that really also goes back onto the biur, which is why a person, let's say, would make a blessing when he puts up a sukkah, according to the Yerushalmi, but Shechianu he would not do when he puts up a sukkah, because the blessing when he makes kiddush, the first night of sukkahs, would also go back on the building of the sukkah, and therefore he can make a blessing according to the Yerushalmi. The Balvi does not possibly make a blessing, but the Yerushalmi says you do make a blessing on building a sukkah, but you don't make a Shechianu because again, A, it's no time, and B, you could have go back, and then he's going to go through the protocols now here also. But if you want to, you want to be machmer, you want to make a bracha, kol hakavod. It is a new mitzvah. You're doing it for now at its time. Go ahead and make the blessing. V'adayni avi harash, but my father the Rush, kasav she'enu varach. He says you don't make a blessing. Shebdika he l'tzoyrech haregel. He says it's not a rishus. I'm saying it's a shus. But my father says you don't make the blessing. No, you can't. You can't make the blessing. If you do make a blessing, it's a blessing that's in vain. Shabbatika he l'tzoyrech regel, because it's only done because of the holiday. Uvesamchin azman the regel, and therefore rely on the holidays shechiyanu. Again, the one you make a kiddush, all the preparation stuff you do for the holiday is all encompassed in that shechiyanu, and therefore you can't make a separate one. Because of Eid, Adoni Avi Rush, and my father's Rush also wrote, Yesh Aimrim She'ein Lebaydek the daber ad shigmar kol habdika, and some say that one should not speak until he completes the entire bdika. When you make the bracha on the bior, you should not speak until you finish the checking. V'yesh moisifin oid loymar sheisiach b'dvarim shaloi minyan bdika tzarach lachzor levarach. And some even add that say if he talks matters that are unrelated to the checking, he has to say another bracha. V'kol zeh eno shaveli. But to me, it does not make sense, and this became minig Ashkenaz. Does not make sense. You don't have to bless again. Ela sheyesh l'zahir. Really, a person should be very careful not to make an interruption or speak between saying the blessing on the bior, on the checking, and then starting the checking. But once he started to check, then speaking is not a hefsek. Even if it's not talking about the searching itself, it's also not going to be considered a hefsek, and it's going to be fine. Similarly, when you're sitting in a sukkah, a person could speak the entire meal. The conversation is not a hefsek. Right? It's not going to be, you're not requiring a new bracha of a moitzi, a new bracha of leisha basukah in that situation. It's all part, even if you talk things that are nothing to do with sukkah. Initially, it's better Really, it's better if you can not talk about anything that's unrelated to the checking until after you do the checking. But if you do, no new blessing is required. Kidei sheyosim as lipa, he should turn his heart. Lidvik b'kolam b'kama, he should nachzu by chametz, and he should pay attention to where all the chametz is brought. Because again, if a person is also talking about unrelated things, he's not going to do a good check. So he's saying it's better not to even do that because you want to have your intention on actually checking and make sure you don't go and just wander your house, not even looking. You have to remember all the places that chametz might be. And one bracha is also good for many houses. And if the homeowner cannot exert himself to search every part of the house, in other words, houses these days, if you live in a small apartment, fine. But people who have multi-floor houses, attic, second floor, first floor, basement, or whatever it is, back of the house, front of the house, two floors even, it's a lot. It's a lot to check, to do a good, thorough check. People do this thing with a flashlight, they wave around every single room, and they find their 10 pieces, and they say it's fine. Really should be looking. And that could take time, and therefore it could be an exertion. So if the owner of the house cannot do it himself, so Yamid Kol B'nei Beisai Eitzlai B'Shar Shehu Mevarach. He should have all members stand with him when he recites the blessing. The Espazru Ludvig Ish Mukaimai, and each person to disperse and check his designated area. Al Samach HaBracha Shebarach HaBais, and they all rely on the blessing that the owner made. In which 10 people could perform one mitzvah as long as they all hear them. So the owner of the house makes a blessing, and then he tells them, you go check the kitchen, you go check the guest room, you go check your bedroom, you go check your bedroom, you go check the study, and then I'll check the basement, and everyone does their own area, and they all come back, and they all do the check, and therefore it's done, all on one blessing. Tuf Lamed Dalid. This is the last one we're going to do today. We're going to try to do 5 a day because it's a lot to cover before Passover, all the laws. And we're doing now, again, those who are joining us, Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher, the Torah, we're doing Hilchas of Pesach. This is Minig Ashkenaz. V'habedika tzricha shitol ar haner, and the checking has to be done by the light of a candle. These days it could be done by a flashlight. V'loy or halavana, but not for the light of the moon. V'loy or chama, and not by the light of the sun. Clearly, if it's done at night, it's not the sunlight anyway. Afilu in baidik b'yayim, if you check by day, it should not be done by the sunlight. Even then, you should use a candle. Gain shlai badak belel yudal the baidik b'yayim dal. For example, if you not check on the 14th and he wants to check in the morning of the 14th, afilu hachitzarech lidvaik la'arhaner. Even so, he must check by candlelight. Umi, however, asadra. Achsadra, Kevon, Sha'ira, Rav, Nivdekes, La'ira. However, an Achsandra, a porch or a portico, since it has abundant light, may be checked by outside light, by sunlight. Afilu, Be'echad ve'ein sarach ner keneged achiloin, and even a room that a candle is not needed opposite exactly a window. Aval din sarach ner, but for the sides that moonlight is not shining in exactly, so then it's fine. Now we all know the 14th of Nisan always has basically a full moon, so there is going to be a full moon. If it's not cloudy, it's going to be a full moon. It's going to have light, and maybe in that light you could use the moonlight, but on the sides of the room, you definitely need to check all the cracks, crevices under the beds, in the closets, everything with a flashlight candle. Avuka, you don't check with a torch. He's not going to want to go into the holes, into the cracks with the torch. It's going to be too dangerous. But in these days, a torch, a flashlight, that is okay. V'gam yira shema Yisra by Bais. You're going to burn down the house. You're not going to burn down the house with a flashlight. His mind will be very concerned. He's not going to check properly. Because of Adoni Avi Harush and the Torah's father wrote, okay, Noigim Ashkenaz, therefore it's a minig of Ashkenaz, Sha'im Baikin, Ella Bener Shalai Sha'ava. So therefore, you check only with a wax candle. Aval loy bener shel chelim, but not a candle that's with fat. Shema yatif ala kelim, because he's going to drip all over his kelim, and actually it could be also non-kosher fat, and that can make his utensils and other parts not kosher. But even if it doesn't, a very drippy candle is not going to be good either, because it's not going to want to drip all over the place. These days, you could use a little. I mean, you could have put a paper underneath it so it doesn't drip, but whatever it is. And obviously, you could start with the candle, and you can finish with the flashlight. V'loi bener shel shuman, and not with a fat candle, shema, which is kosher fat. Shema yatif al klei chelev, that because it might drip on dairy vessels. So even if it's a kosher fat, it's fat of an animal, it can drip on dairy vessels and make those not kosher. V'loi bener shaloi shumim shiara shema yatif al b'gadim, and not on an oil lamp that he's afraid it's going to drip on his garments. V'gam ene yacha lachnias lechayrin losdakin. Also, he's not going to go into the holes in the cracks because it's dripping all over the place. He's not going to want to use it. You have to check in all places that you might have thought that chametz might have gone into there. Kevan kigain, for instance, oitzrais yayin shemis tapkin mehen, maybe storehouses or cellars or your barrels of wine are kept. Maybe they were accessed when someone had food. Sham dagim kitanim umshemelech v'ha'etzim v'haneros v'hatmarim, a place where small pieces of fish, salt, wood, candles, and dates are stored. Those places, because you also could have brought chametz in when you want to get more food during a meal or something, or prepare for a meal. Shepamim sheim kelim b'say chasuda. Sometimes they're needed during the suda, right? V'hashamesh haylech lahavi mehem upisay biyada. Maybe he went there with a piece of bread in his hand. Umatam zeh kol chadrei abayis v'elyon atrichen bidika. Therefore, all the rooms of the house require bidika. Shabam adam nichnos behem ufav yadai pas yadai. Sometimes a person goes with bread in his hand, and therefore he doesn't know, and therefore you should check all the rooms in the house where possibly chametz was brought. V'oitzrais shechar mekaymai shregilin by chshir choisos yayin, and beer storage houses, in places with a common access like wine storage houses, latzrichin bedika, amasabik behen, maybe the bedika is required there. Aval oitzrais yayin shloim sakik behen, but wine stores that are not ever accessed, oitzrais shemen afilu emesurek behen, even oil storage houses, even if they are accessed to mekaim shishon shel dagim gedolim, and places where you store large fish, ein shrich bedika, those don't require checking unless you know that you went there with chametz. She'ein derech because you don't go there during the meal. And the holes of the house, and you have to go, and any protrusions coming out from a wall, v'loy nemuchin harbe tzrichin bedika. They're neither very high or very low. They require bedika. Aval hagavoyin shein yad adam magia sham, and those that are high, and a person cannot reach. But and those are lower than 3 tachim don't. So anything that's basically within reach, not too low and not too high, those require bedika. But if it's very, very high or very, very low, then the access you don't. But of course, if you have kids, by the way, if you have children, you have to check everywhere, because a kid could put chametz anywhere. You could leave the table during the meal with bread, and he could have put that anywhere in the house. So if you have a kid or you have a dog, a pet, anywhere in the house, you got to check, because you never know where that kid or where that pet brought the chametz. Gag shahatzia v'hamagdel, a sloped roof or a tower. Shahu pshua eina yirayul shamesh ein tzarich b'gdel. That does not need a bedika. V'afilu boy b'saycha bayis, even if it's inside a house. And likewise a cattle shed, a chicken coop, or a hayloft, and a courtyard that does not require a checking. Because the birds do not live in a chametz uneaten. So you have a courtyard, even if you brought chametz there, by the time Pesach comes around, there will be no chametz there. Hole shebein Yehudi lechavrai, between a Jew and his fellow, between a Jewish house and the house next door, even if it's owned by a Jew. Kol echad baydek al makamei sheyadai magas. Everyone has to check as far as his hand could reach. Vashar batlai belibav yadai. And if he can't reach further than that, he says, then it's that's nullified in his heart. Yehudi la'akum, and if it's between a Jew and a non-Jew, ain't sarach bedika klal, then he does not require the bedika. So kaishels Jew by chametz ubaychrin v'nafa v'nasa gal, a wall whose holes are used for chametz then collapse into a heap. Afilu ena gavaya gimel tvachim, even if it's not 3 tvachim, k'dei chipas Hakelev ain't sarach lidvayk taktav. So because even a dog who can't go in, there's no need to check beneath it. Kevan sheish ba is a kanas ekrav, because there's a sakana, there's a danger that maybe there's a scorpion there or some other spider that could bite you. Aval biadua. But if you know for sure there's chametz there, tzarech lidvayk achav loitzi, then he must check and remove it from there. All right, mitzraf misadrin by shurai shel chavyos, a cellar arranged with rows of a barrel. Ain't tzarech lidvayk ela shura aliena. You only need to do the top row, because that's the one that's outside. You're not gonna have stuffed chametz all the way in. Either way, you're not gonna be able to reach it, and your bittul is gonna be finding a way. Yishami, and according to the Talmud Yishami, bate knisiyos, bate midrashos tzrichim bedika, shuls and study halls require a checking. Shemachnisin behen chametz berurim berashay chadashim, because chametz is brought there for the festival meals. Hilkach she'enai nami tzrichim bedika, therefore ours as well require bedika. Lafi she tiznoikais b'masichim behen chametz, because children bring chametz there, even though there's a rule. You're not supposed to bring in chametz into a shul, into a place where you pray. Into a study hall, you're allowed to bring chametz in, you're allowed to bring food in, because you can eat while you study. But a place that's designated only to pray, that you're not supposed to bring food in. And in Germany, there was a big distinction between the study hall and the shul where they actually would pray in. And even in Ashkenaz, where they would have this distinction, you still have to check the shul, because children could bring it in, you never even know. Kosav Ravan, the Ravan says, B'nei Adam, Achadreihem B'Yud Gimel B'Sivan. The Ravan says, people who clean their rooms on the 13th Nisan, Afal Pi, Kain Tzricha B'Dika B'Lel Yidal. So in other words, even if you clean your room, you do a great spring cleaning the weeks before Pesach, you still have to do a B'Dika on the night of Pesach. The night before Pesach on Yudalid. And that is it. That is it for today. We are going to... One second. What are we up to over here? Oh, this is next. Okay. That's the 5 for today, and we'll continue this tomorrow.